Because ideas are cheap and plentiful, it's important to recognise those that have real value. There's no point wasting time on rubbish. This video has got a working title of Fireworks Brain, and it comes from a comment someone left on one of my videos. This person said, "The thoughts come faster than my hand can write them down. If I use a pen and paper, I forget a lot of my thoughts before I get a chance to write them down. So I talk my thoughts out in the Notes app and my iPad converts my voice to text. This is the way I remove the bottleneck that exists between the forming of the thoughts and documenting it down on paper." She also says, "I do this process of writing on a 12.9-inch iPad because it's the same device I use when I do handwrite, so I don't use pen and paper anymore." Now, it's an interesting comment and it certainly resonates with me. For the first hour or so of each day, my mind's like a fireworks display, especially just after I wake up. Ideas and connections come thick and fast. There's often music, usually a song I've heard recently. You know how sometimes a song will just stick in your head and won't stop playing? They're called earworms, apparently. Even a song you love can drive you mad if it becomes an earworm. At the same time as the music's playing, there'll be ideas. These could be for things at work or personal projects, often both. Things I'm worried or anxious about will be there too. Life's complicated, right? And all this stuff adds up. It can be overwhelming. And first thing in the morning when you wake up, your mind's had time to process it all overnight. When we're awake, we can, to some extent, control what we think about. But when we're asleep, nah. We're at the mercy of our unconscious mind. So it's all there, an orchestra of thoughts at full blast. Only there's no conductor, all the sections are playing different arrangements, the strings are out of tune and the brass section's been on the tequila. It's a right racket. A bit like the orchestra I used to be in at school, to be honest. Now all this stuff's going on inside your head. My mind's like... But some of it you want to keep. Because among all that noise are thoughts and ideas that are important or potentially useful, coming thick and fast, fleeting glimpses, there and gone. So when there's so much going on inside our head, what do? How do we capture some of the good stuff and calm the noise? Capture is important, all those ideas and thoughts and possibilities. I use several tools, a mix of analog and digital. Some work better than others, and it's often dependent on the circumstances. Sometimes I'll write on scraps of paper, scribbled notes, just a few words. Because I know that if I write it down, physically, by hand, I won't need to look at it again. Somehow, writing by hand burns it into the brain. Or, like the person who left the comment, I might use the Notes app on my phone. This is especially useful if I'm out with Dudley. I can just take out my phone, say, "Hey," and dictate a note. Apple Notes really is great for that. It's one of my favourite apps. Now, a lot of people swear by a physical notebook and pen. And although I'm a strong proponent of analog tools, sometimes they're just not convenient. I tried to write a note on a bus once. It was the bus to Worcester. It was a nice idea, but the writing was so jiggly I couldn't read it later. Maybe there are smoother roads where you are. I might also email something to myself. That's something I'll do for a work thing, especially because my work and personal stuff are on different machines, different accounts. So I'll type or dictate a quick email to my work email address and then I can deal with it later. There is one strong benefit analog tools have over digital. It's really significant and it's why I use pencil and paper so often. Lack of distractions. Have you ever picked up your phone to do something, been sidetracked by a notification or a message and dealt with that, and then forgotten why you picked the phone up in the first place? Me too. So a way around that, and this is something I do to avoid being distracted by all that phone stuff first thing in the morning, is when I go to bed, I put the phone in airplane mode. Then you can use it without the intrusions. It also means you're not polluted by external influences when you first wake up. Especially important, I think, if you're going to do morning pages. When you've captured some thoughts or done something really useful with your phone, you can turn off airplane mode and let the distractions begin. Now, there's something else in this person's comment that stands out to me. They seem to want to capture everything. For a long time, I was the same. I felt that if I didn't capture everything, then something really valuable could be lost. A golden nugget could slip through. I might miss the acorn that from a mighty oak could grow. But there are a few things to consider. For one, it's impossible to capture everything. If you've got to go to work or get the kids ready for school or whatever, then spending time making notes, no matter how valuable they might be or how important to you, just isn't practical or even possible. But the real fact of the matter is that not everything is worth capturing. Ideas are cheap. We can all have lots of ideas. But what I've found is that many of these great ideas are really great ideas for a little while. Give them time and their shortcomings often become apparent. So my view now is that if an idea has real value, is really worth developing, then at some point it'll come back to me regardless of whether it was captured during that first display of fireworks. So I use a combination. Very often, I capture something quickly into a device and then maybe revisit that note later and distill it down into a notebook entry. And that process of distillation is very important. Because ideas are cheap and plentiful, it's important to recognise those that have real value, those that are worth developing further. There's no point wasting time on rubbish. And that's where writing by hand, more slowly, whether that's on paper or on something like an iPad, like the person who left the comment, can be a valuable filter. Because you'll know. You'll know. Because if you're not motivated to write it down, then it's probably not worth bothering with. This really comes back to what I honestly feel more than anything else. Do what's right for you. There are lots of ways of capturing, so do what works for you. You might have to experiment to find out what that is, but that's part of the fun.